Good. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this evening, or afternoon time stateside, we're joined by Lue Deck, who is the comic in red shoes. And we've been introduced to each other through mutual contact. And we thought we'd just get to know each other on the podcast of the YouTube channel. So how are you doing today, Lou? You okay?
I'm in a great mood, and I hope you are too. Happy welcome to everyone who's watching.
Yes, yes. So welcome to all the listeners and all the watchers on the podcast of the YouTube channel. And yeah, it's nice to get to know somebody who's a comic. I don't get many comics on my podcast and the YouTube channel. I often just get entrepreneurs, but we got introduced together with a fellow contact of mine, or ours, and she said you're her comic agent. So how did you get into becoming comic agent?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
How did you get into becoming a comic agent?
Oh, wow. The joke is I quit law school to become a stand-up comic, and 45 years later, my mom's still pissed off about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I had a verbal facility doing television in college, and someone asked me, well, you're funny. Would you like to do a stand-up show? And I was living on what we refer to as the GI Bill. It's a program for veterans of the United States military. So it was very little and paid for most of my schooling, but none of the other expenses. So when they offered me money to be funny, I chose to try it. Yeah. About 8 months in, I stopped college and came to Hollywood and came to a particular place here. It's a famous club called the Comedy Store. Okay. And found employment there as a doorman MC within the first 6 weeks in Hollywood, and I've never stopped.
Okay, brilliant. So my guess is that if you were based in the Comedy Store in Hollywood, I guess you've seen some well-known comics over the years.
Oh, well, yes. I started in 1976. I worked there till 1988. And then went out on tour, and for some reason I never came back because I was steadily employed all over the United States, got a couple of world's records for performing in 100 cities a year for 7 straight years, did a bunch of international shows entertaining the United States troops overseas, and when I came back to Hollywood, it was simply because I wanted to marry a girl that lived here.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what sort of comedians would you have brushed shoulders with over the years?
Well, my heroes are Johnny Carson from The Tonight Show, yeah. Who I met at the Comedy Store and at his show. Robin Williams, David Letterman, Jay Leno, Teeth, who has actually done a number of command performances for the Queen. And that I'm wondering, the names I know, you may not know, but I'm scanning my memory to think of people. Rich Hall has been in the United States in England for quite a while. And that...
I know Rich Hall. I know Rich Hall, yeah. I know obviously Robbie Williams. Robbie Williams, Letterman, Jay Leno. I know all of them.
Well, actually, that's wonderful for me. There are many, many more, but it's always hard to judge what international names are known in different countries.
Yeah.
Recently, we've had a series on what is in America. It's called Showtime Comedy Channel. Showtime Cable Channel.
Yeah. And
they have just run a 5-episode series of the history of the Comedy Store. Okay. And of all of the millions of comics and brilliant names, I was privileged to read different episodes as
Okay.
they interviewed me and they used some of my video. So it was like the biggest honor you could imagine amongst American comics.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think I think there are some Brits who may struggle with some of the names you mentioned, but um, I'm 43, so I'm not too young, so age helps with some of the names you
Oh, you're just a
said.
young fellow. Wait,
I,
I've been young to say lately, wait till you see what you will learn in the next 20 years,
yeah,
because that's about how much older I am than you.
yeah,
And that I'm not at the point of my career where I'm hungry for fame or money because I've had it. What
yeah,
I'm now is grateful to have had the opportunity to travel as much as I have and to enjoy making people laugh for my whole adult life.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But I think some of the names you said then, because I'm 40, like Letterman and Leno and some of them, they've been around a while. So, I've been around, enough time to have experienced some of those guys. Obviously, Robbie Williams, everyone knows Robin Williams because of his films. And I had
A good man. In my mind, Robin Williams was perhaps the greatest, most inventive mind of my generation.
yeah, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
And a great guy. And most of us that knew Robin truly regret that he hadn't reached out to one or two of us. We
Yeah,
might have been able to stop him from suicide.
mm,
You would be
yeah,
surprised how many fine comics have ended their own life.
yeah,
And word is out amongst the older crew. If anyone feels like that, call us. We'll make you laugh. We'll show you that you're still important to us.
yeah,
And it's a sad thing, but then I believe in self-determination throughout comedy, throughout my life, and for most people. And if that was his determination to end self, I'm sad, but I honor his choice.
mm. I
Not
had a
exactly
friend on.
funny stuff, but
Yeah, I had a friend on
sir,
recently. I had a friend on recently who is a comic and done a few gigs around everywhere, and he was playing somewhere in Canada, I think, one evening, and Robbie Williams come in, and they got talking at the bar, and then he took him to the comedy club the next night and stuff. He seemed, a nice, down to earth, guy, as most people are. Once you get beyond there, the layers of celebrity or whatever, most people at the end of the day, they're just normal people looking to make connections and build relationships and get through life, enjoying themselves.
well, I agree with you totally. But Hollywood is a vicious place. They tell you things that aren't true to get you to work for them or give them your money or just to sap off your fame. So it's crazier here than most places. And as a result, it's a lot of pressure, even though, damn it, once your fame exceeds what you had planned, it's like standing on a mountain. It's very easy to fall off the mountain.
Yeah.
So when it starts, some people feel desperate.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I think fame and notoriety can become a bit like an addiction and a bit like a drug, a bit like alcohol, all these sort of things. I think sometimes they can accentuate what's going on in a human. So sometimes, like if you drink or if you do drugs or if you get into fame, but you've got issues, they can be amplified in those situations and some people can deal with things because they got strong inner self, and other people lose their way a little bit because maybe they're not so strong inside, and so anything can distract them, and they get caught up. It happens all the time with fame and in Hollywood and all sorts of places. People lose themselves.
I agree with you completely. And that I knew Robin before he got famous. He was just a great nightclub comedian when I first met him at the Comedy Store. and to watch his climb up the ladder to virtually the top was interesting to watch as the pressures grew, how he reacted and how others react once they get famous.
Yeah.
I never cared for fame. It's an old thing within Hollywood. You can trade your performance or fame, but then it wears out the performance. In the old days of burlesque and vaudeville in the United States, you could do your same 30 minutes, 1 hour show for 20 years. But now in the modern TV area, once you do your hour on TV, you have to recreate it another hour, which is twice as hard.
Yeah.
So I've always hidden my performance, my live show, away from TV. I never really cared to do TV much except for promotion. And then that way now I've been able to perform for, this is my 44th year as a stand-up.
Yeah.
And that I've only been on TV a couple of times, and that only use selected parts of material. So it's all intact for me. Whereas with Robin, when he did 3 different 1 hour shows.
Yeah.
Imagine how hard it is to be brilliant in the 4th or 5th hour.
Yeah.
And that's where the pressure comes along. Frankly, Robin was never going to fail, ever, ever. He had one of those once in a lifetime minds and once in a life urge.
Yeah.
But he did have a mental problem with depression.
Yeah.
And then he was pushing 60, about my age too. And it just piled up on him.
Mm.
All I can say is I regret his choice, but I honor his memory.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the best you can do for someone, a friend that's gone that you respect.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And so when did you turn to helping other comics, becoming an agent and that sort of thing?
Well, I'm one of those comics that, as I took around in law and sales, so I was far able to speak and be a public speaker before I learned how to be funny.
Yeah.
And that several comedians in the 70s and 80s hired me to be a performance coach. And I'm just mostly talking about identifying where the funny part of the joke is and making sure you stop so the audience can laugh, how to phrase a joke, what to wear, what kind of jokes the host of the show you're on likes. And that I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different clients reach what was the pinnacle in the old days was the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, actually work with me at the Comedy Store. And then after 2 years at the Comedy Store, the owner of the Comedy Store, the incredible Mitzi Shore, hired me. So we would shoot your live show and then take you into my office and show you the tape of what you did 20 minutes ago. And we could give notes and shape the performance and eliminate the mistakes. So I had a reputation of being a performance coach long before I was a professional stand-up. Then over the years, going on stage 3, 4, 5 nights a week at the Comedy Store, I developed my own act. And then when I was in Hollywood, to tour with a famous comic, and he got all the bookings, so I got multiple shows every week, month, and a year for 5, 6 years. And the practice and shaping, just giving my own advice to myself, helped me to become a reliable act. And along the way, I chose, I'm what we call a spokesman monologist.
Yeah.
I don't sing, I don't dance, I just make them laugh. Me, the crowd, and the microphone. So the essential key there is repeated to eliminate mistakes and highlight choices. So now all I have to do is show up, walk on stage, and be myself, and I have an 85% chance of being funny consistently for the whole show. I'm a joke teller. So in American stand-up, we have something called LPMs. Have you ever heard of that?
LPMs, no.
It means laughs per minute.
Okay, yeah.
So in my stand-up act, I function somewhere near between 4 and 5 laughs a minute. That automatically gets 45-minute show than most comics because I have more attempts.
Yeah.
On TV, I slow down some because it takes a while for people to get the concept across the media.
Okay, yeah. There's a chap, Tim Vine, that does very short, sharp, 1 second sort of jokes, rapid jokes, and he can probably
Joke.
he could do like
But
about 60 laughs per minute.
in America, are pretty much a choice as a stand-up comic. You're either a joke comic or an attitude comic.
Yeah.
So I'm a joke comic, meaning I tell a lot of jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, because obviously, I'd say like, most comedians these days are observational comics. They talk about their life and the funny bits of their life, if you like.
Some do, some don't. There's a lot of ways to do it. In particular, I try never to tell a political joke on TV.
Yeah.
And to a large crowd, because if they don't like the person I'm joking, if they do like the person I'm joking about, they may get unhappy with it.
Yeah.
So I pretty much talk about me, and where I've been with me.
Yeah.
And that that way I don't have to worry about anybody tuning out mentally.
Yeah, fair enough. It's quite hard to make a joke sometimes about Donald Trump when he sort of like he makes the jokes himself. You know what I mean? It's quite hard to.
I'll take a risk here. May I offer one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty much apolitical in public. I have my own liberal feelings completely, but in public, I try not to speak about it. But my credo is, if you tell me or I can figure out what the crowd knows, then I can make them laugh with references of it. So, having had the election just last week and the problems with concession speeches, today it was announced that Donald Trump just had his 3rd colonoscopy. And all the doctors found was an impression of his own head. Okay, now there will be Trump supporters that don't like that joke, and I'm aware of that.
And the problem with Trump supporters is they all got guns.
Well, I'm reluctant to criticize his supporters because I may want them to laugh for me.
Yeah, but most of them won't get your jokes.
Them is a different matter. But I just, well, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm an entertainer. I want you to have a good time with me. I try very hard not to make you angry or to piss you off.
Yeah.
By the way, let me ask your opinion there. In America, the phrase "don't piss them off" is commonplace. Is that profane in England?
I think piss is a profanity. Yeah, it would be classed as one, but it would be classed as.
Well, then I apologize to you and the viewers.
It would be no.
I don't want to make them angry.
It would be on a weaker side, I think. It would be one a bit like, I don't know, you in America, you might find these ones more offensive, things like Jesus Christ or bloody hell, things like that, which are old school, slang swear words before swear words really got street, if you like, got raw,
Well, I have met Eddie Izzard. here in Hollywood, but just shaking his hand after a show, I can't say I got a chance to talk to him at all.
No.
But that there are some things he does, the boundary into not profane, but what we call edgy
Yeah.
in
Okay.
America, and that I am not edgy on purpose. If I want to
No.
be edgy, I wouldn't do it for my crowd or in the media.
Yeah.
I've been known to print something edgy. I have a book out, and there's more than a few edgy things in that.
Yeah.
But in live performance, the customer has paid their money to come out and have a good time. I
Yeah.
specifically avoid doing anything that would spoil the good time.
Yeah. Make someone uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, if you paid your money to see the show and I'm part of the show, I consider it part of my obligation to avoid making you angry.
Yeah.
Almost said it again. You've mentioned our mutual friend. We are exploring difference between America and England, and I've been known to stray across the line there, not knowing it was dangerous area.
Yeah.
But as the most part, I was raised in the southern United States, and that the state of Georgia, and that although I was born in Texas and my family is from Texas and my parents are from Texas, I grew up in Georgia. Well, as I became a man, meaning I graduated high school and went into the United States military, I'm a veteran of the United States Navy. All my mother ever wanted me to do was be a Southern gentleman. Through done of contact and repetition and practice, to this day, and for 90% of my life, I am a Southern gentleman. I don't know how that transfers to England other than to say, would you know the name Rhett Butler?
I know the name Rat Butler. I'm trying to think where do I know the name from, but
It's a character that Clark Gable
people.
played in
Yeah.
Gone with the
Gone
Wind.
with the Wind. That's right. Yeah. That's why I recognize it because
Yes,
it's a bit before my time, but
Char-
it's a big classic.
Yeah, well, it is here too. But what I'm saying is that's as close as I can explain to you what a Southern gentleman is.
Okay. Yeah. I know what a
I'm a
Southern.
manly gentleman. I try to honor women, children, and orphans, and until provoked, would not bother you with my opinion.
No.
But one of my skills, and I say skills because I'll be the least talented comic you'll ever meet, I'm a skilled public speaker. And
Yeah.
one of my skills is to try to be charming rather than controversial until provoked, and then I can be profane. But
Yeah.
we
Yeah. So
try to hold it back.
you have what I would call a higher level of empathy and diplomacy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I perform entertaining the United States troops all over the world. And one of the rules, half the time I work for what's called the USO. That's the United Service Organization that takes care of people serving in the military and their families. And then the other time, the Department of Defense, because they take us places no one else can go because of the military situation.
Yeah.
And we are censored to the point of having to agree to say nothing controversial about the place we're at or criticizing the American president.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
half of my act is talking about places I've been to in America. I'm allowed to do that, but I can't mention the president. Recently, this last year, we saw President Trump and the president of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, standing for a publicity photo at the 38th parallel between South Korea and North Korea.
Yeah.
Well, I did a show right there, and I have pictures of me standing in the exact same, but I was explained and commanded to make no mention of anything about negative toward North Korea or America, because it's a government-sponsored show.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's I recognize those traits because I come from a corporate sales background. So, in corporate world, you have to think before you speak, and most comedians and comics don't think before they speak. They just speak what they think. Yeah, and obviously
Well,
you're a rare comic who think before they speak. And self-edit, if you like, before the words come out.
I agree completely, and mostly, at least in America, you don't get the same education performing around the country or even in New York that you do performing in Los Angeles or at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
I was educated from the first of my career to avoid controversy and to be able to self-edit.
Yeah.
Then I have a sales background. Boy, I sold encyclopedias door to door in the 60s and 70s. And if you suss a sale, same goes in Hollywood. If you say the wrong thing, you can lose getting a chance to be in the media.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of choosing, learning, and making good choices. I've always said stand-up comedy is a matter of choices, and if you make the right ones, you'll find success. If you make the wrong ones, you won't.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm on a mission to become a global speaker myself. I want to motivate and educate people in the world of sales, marketing, networking, social media, personal development, entrepreneurship, all that sort of thing. That's the reason why I do my podcast. And I'm an award-winning networker. I'm one of the top networkers in Wales, and I network around the UK.
I agree that if it's a matter of making a sale,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm glad you said that because I still don't know when to refer to what parts of the UK as the UK or England. Now, since I know a friend in Wales already,
Yeah.
I've learned to make certain changes for fear of provoking them to something that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, well, a lot of Americans say about Wales, if they don't know where it is, they say, is that in England? Because obviously most Americans have heard of London, England, but Wales
yes,
and they're our rivals.
Northwest England, right?
It's a bit like saying, is the USA in Canada?
No.
No, it's a bit like saying that, though, so it's a bit like saying that we're the neighbors next door.
It may be unkind, but most Americans think of Canada as our upstairs neighbor.
Yeah.
Speak the same language predominantly, but the customs are fairly different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the same as England and Wales, England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales all form the UK, but they're all different countries. They're a bit like different states, if you like. It's a bit like 4 different states, and it's the United States of the UK, or the United Kingdom. Yeah. The 4 principalities have their own sort of identity. It's a bit like saying, is Hawaii, Vegas, Hawaii, California, Texas, and Georgia. Is Texas? So it's like saying to Georgians they're from Texas, or Hawaiians they're from California, or whatever. They would all say they're different. They have their own culture and personality.
Well, I've been corrected over the weekend, as a matter of fact, to refer to Wales as a country, not a state.
Yes, that's right.
And that I'm fine with that. As a matter of fact, a friend of ours has just recorded a song for independence for Wales.
Okay.
And it's magnificent.
Yeah.
And that I could not understand the Welsh version, but she also recorded an English version, and I was deeply moved.
Yeah.
And the parallel I make is, I was born in Texas. My family is from Texas. As it turns out, my mother's family is named Houston, as in for the city of Houston, and the first president of the country, the Republic of Texas. Before Texas was a state, it was its own country.
Yeah.
They fought Mexico and got independence. And then 14 years later, joined the United States. But Texas always believes they're different, they're bigger, and they're better. That's what they believe.
Yeah.
And that I have no problem with that. But since we had our Civil War in the 1860s, Texas joined the Confederacy and removed the first president, Sam Houston, from office because he would not support slavery or the Confederacy. So they voted him out of office, and yet they kept slaves in Texas until after the Emancipation Proclamation. Yet to this day, do not tell me that Georgia is from the South and so is Texas. No, Texas wouldn't have the South.
No.
It's mostly just like Wales wouldn't have Scotland.
Yeah.
Two different countries.
Two
Two
different,
different
yeah,
countries.
Well, that's
I'm
the thing,
beginning to understand
yeah.
Wales supporting and going for independence because Texas did, and now I understand the concept of having your own culture, your own language, your own feelings.
The thing is with the United States, so a lot of people look at America as America, but actually, the 52 states run as very independent. They are like mini countries, really. On the equivalent of like England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, we all speak the same language. We use the same currency, except for the Republic of Ireland. The Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, Wales, we all speak the same language. We all have the same currency. We all have similar culture, but we all got our little unique identifier stuff, and that's the same as the States. You all have the same money, you speak the same language, you got the same president, but you all have different food cultures and music cultures, and you're all very different places, the States.
I agree completely. And that only by knowing a lady from Wales, I believe she lives in Cardiff, where you are, has she explained the difference to me, and then listening to her in conversation with her rejection of most things British or English, have I come to understand that I have made the same mistake a lot of people make about the United States. Most of the states at the border of the United States, that is to say around the edges, have cultural differences and predispositions and biases. I admit Texas is biased, but it's part of our charm. We're Texas. Yeah. So understanding that, I understand now, and that's recently in the last 2-3 weeks, that Wales is rightly proud of their cultural differences, considers themselves an independent country, and although I'm not a violent person, I've always said that if Israel is under attack and needs help, I would get a gun and go to Israel. Well, recently I've made the same pledge for Wales. If y'all go to war to get your independence, let me know. I will show and come over and support that drive for independence.
Yeah.
Because whatever it takes to accomplish one's own freedom is one of my goals too.
Yeah, good. But I was going to say, like, it's like Texas, for example, compared to a lot of states.
And frankly, I'm sure.
Yeah, Texas is very different than, say, California or New York, or Texas is vastly different. With still the traditions, the cowboys, the rodeos. It's just a very different country.
That's a fading part of Texas. We were famous and everybody knew about the cowboys, but there's such a small group of cowboys left that is not nearly the identity of Texas.
No, I think the big cities like Houston and Dallas have come. The big cities like Houston and Dallas have come along now, and they're more financial capitals and stuff, aren't they? They're big cities now.
Well, there's two. really big cities in Texas, Dallas and Houston.
Yeah.
There are other larger cities, but they're completely different culturally from Houston and Texas, Houston and Dallas.
Yeah.
What makes Texas unique is its size. I hate to remind people, but you could put 7 or 8 Englands in Texas.
Yeah. Oh, it's big. Yeah, it's big.
Big. It's bigger than most countries in Europe
Yeah.
by double at least.
Yeah.
So because there's so much distance between places, the cultures vary. North Texas is different from South Texas. East Texas is different from West Texas.
Yeah.
And yet they all have the identity of being the biggest state, which they're not actually. I hate to point it out, but Alaska is
Alaska, yeah.
And that, oh well, I have a joke that usually makes people upset up in the northern United States is I want to admit Canada into the United States, cut them in 2 or 3 states and admit them into the country just to make the Texans angry.
Yeah.
But again, I would take no freedom for myself that I would not grant to others.
Yeah.
So I'm proud to be from Texas. I am not proud to be from Georgia. I still have my family there, and I only visit intermittently because I cannot take the racism.
Yeah.
There's, for some reason, they are still brutally racist toward African Americans. And I don't support that in the slightest. So it's uncomfortable for me to be there and listen to that kind of talk.
Yeah, no,
I
that
only
sounds,
visit my family.
yeah, that's like going back in time because there are some parts of there's some parts of the world that are just a few decades behind other parts, and maybe Georgia's one of those. You know, it's just a bit behind mentally and technology, and it's an old school place where they haven't. Some people just don't like change, and that sort of attitude, the mindset and the attitude that maybe in the 70s, for example, was acceptable. Some people still think, it's still the 70s,
Well, it's odd. I've mentioned I have a book out, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Now, that appears to be reversed, so I apologize for showing it because I was hoping it wouldn't be. The name of my book is called Stand Up Decoded.
Yeah, okay.
It's a series of essays, comedic essays, with lessons behind every one of the essays to help new performers understand basically the rules of stand-up.
Okay.
And because I issued it as an ebook, I have students and fans worldwide now, including 4 or 5 in South Africa, which, because of Nelson Mandela, I'm aware of to some degree. And indeed, one of my students last year placed 2nd on South Africa's Got Talent.
Okay, that's good.
And he calls me a mentor, but let's understand he grew up speaking Zulu, learned German, and now English is his 3rd language. And yet he performed in English for the TV show. Quite the accomplishment.
That's good.
So I'm a fan of South Africa, and that one day I will go there. I have 2 places left I want to go in the world. One is the UK. I want to come to Wales.
Yeah.
I want to see Stonehenge. I want to see London and Stratford-on-Avon, the Shakespeare Theatre.
Yeah.
And then I want to go to South Africa to meet some of my students.
Brilliant.
So at some point I will retire. I'm getting on now, as you can tell from the silver hair. I'm no young spring chicken anymore. So within the next couple of years, I will probably retire and then try to travel.
Do a bit, yeah. That's my plan. When I retire, I want to do a bit of traveling.
I would hope to meet you, and if you come to Hollywood, please let me know. I'll take you to a famous Hollywood lunch.
Oh, sounds good.
Look at the stars.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds great. I do quite a lot of podcast interviews with Americans because I'm into the personal development space and positivity and all that, which I would say I'm a bit more American in my mindset and mentality than say the average Brit is. You know?
Well, I think it's mostly a matter of putting the finances together and then the willpower. I
Yeah.
would have probably come to England in the last 6 months because live performance for stand-up comedy in America has almost stopped because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Then I find out that Americans can't travel.
That's right.
They're contagious.
They don't normally
In
travel
fact,
anyway, mind, do they? They don't normally travel anyway. They don't normally have a passport.
yeah. Well, uh, I have a Department of Defense and a State Department passport. I don't think there would be any trouble getting permission and a passport to travel to England. But right now, I think we're on the restricted list for many, many countries. But I prepared myself. This is my face mask to wear to Europe. It's Van Gogh's Starry, Starry Night.
Nice, nice. So
Oh,
you're
I
planning
don't leave the house in Los Angeles without a mask on for the last 5 months.
no,
It's the law.
yeah,
And
yeah.
as a
Have you?
comic,
Yeah,
as a charismatic person, I resent having to cover my smile.
and
So it's like losing one of my best weapons. And yet one adapts, one improvises, one overcomes.
yeah,
And that you show me a barrier and I'll surmount it.
yeah. Have you thought
I have
about Have you thought about doing any sort of online live shows, on Zoom or other technical devices during this time?
Well, I don't want to break any confidences, but first the Zoom thing is new.
Okay.
Second, I have done. Well, no, this makes my 12th Zoom appearance, but 5 of them have been interviews about my career. 2 of them have been a Zoom date where you speak to the lady you're interested in over video. And the last 2 have been performances. It's hard to do Zoom because you can't hear the crowd laugh. And
Yeah,
yet, if that's what it comes to, I will adapt. And
yeah,
that one of the gracious things I appreciate you for inviting me to be here was it's always a matter of practice.
yeah,
So what you're giving me a chance to do today is learn the new media.
yeah.
And I thank you for that.
No
Mike, I
problem.
really appreciate it.
No problem at all. And you said you're in your 60s and you're greying, but you're getting a bit more action than I am during this pandemic with your 2 Zoom dates.
Well, first off, I'm the luckiest guy you'll ever meet. I'm just some poor country boy that got a chance to live at the edge of real show business. I'm
Yeah,
a basic nightclub comic. Yes, I do some media. Yes, I live in Hollywood, but what I am concerned with most is the 200 people sitting in front of me and making them laugh.
yeah,
That's all I care about. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the fame. I'm a particular shy person as far as looking at my own picture. I would prefer not to see my face. It's not that I'm embarrassed. It's just that I just don't care for it. I've never cared for pictures of myself.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
and that when I'm
my
performing
tip
and
for
making
you,
them laugh, I just see it from this angle, looking
yeah.
out.
Well, my tip for you would
I'm
be to
learning.
my tip for you would be to do a comedy podcast.
Well, I've been encouraged to do that too. Right now, since the pandemic, everybody and his Uncle Bob are doing a podcast.
They are,
So,
but not everyone and his Uncle Bob has got 40 years comic experience in the comedy store.
well, what's interesting, I have been away from the comedy store since 1988. It was like college. You
Yeah.
just don't go back to college. They don't pay hardly anything at the Comedy Store. So why should I waste my time and effort for no pay? Also,
exactly. It's the training ground. It's the training ground. You've already qualified.
a showcase club. Well, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're a booking agent in the United States and you don't know me or my reputation or my name, I don't want to work for you. I've worked for 40 years to build all this up, and that I have enough other people willing to hire me that if I haven't convinced you by now, why would I even try? But in the last year and a half, 2 years, the Comedy Store has welcomed me back. They have a thing at the Comedy Store in Hollywood where they put the famous comics' names on the wall. It's a black building, and they write white paint and put your name on the wall. And I've been added to the Wall of Fame once in '88, but when they redecorated, they covered over all the names in my area. And then just last year, they put me back on the wall. And then, like I say, big showtime, 5 hours of the history of Comedy Store. They interviewed me twice and used me in 3 of the 5 episodes and 2 of my videos in the other 2.
Yeah.
What more could I want? Every other comic I know, there's a whole world of comics in the United States that aren't Comedy Store alumni.
Yeah.
Well, I have that. I've done well financially. I'm simply not worried about convincing anybody except the people I'm trying to make laugh. It's a luxury that few comics I know have. So I'm content. I'm happy.
I got a
would like to try
suggestion for you.
at audiences in the UK to see how the jokes transferred.
I got a suggestion for you. Why don't
Thank
you
you.
ring?
What?
Why don't you ring around a couple of South African and UK agents and find someone to book you and get your tour to the UK and South Africa covered in expenses?
Well, I will be honest with you. I'm aware that there's a club in London called the Comedy Store, not affiliated with the world famous Comedy Store, that only 4 or 5 of our graduates have ever performed in. And maybe in the next year or 2, depending on the pandemic, I would come and take a shot at it. But to be honest with you, I don't know what British crowds laugh at. I assume it's different, and that I would have to watch a number of shows before I would try it to see if my stuff would transfer to the different culture. But yes, it's on my to-do list. I want to perform in Wales too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think some jokes, some comedy is cross. Can come across from from America to the UK, and some sense of humor is very different. Like, you know what I mean? We're very sarcastic in the UK, and I think in the States at the moment, I don't think this is the sort of comedy that you do. But in the States, it seems to be very much roasting, which we don't tend to have a lot of in the UK. You know, these sort of comic roasts, which is just we would call that taking the piss out of each other, you know? But we would call that sort of everyday banter rather than comedy. You know, that's sort of like the lot.
First, I write about what I see. Let me spend 3 weeks in England, and I would write jokes for it. So it would be a learning experience because of our mutual friend that I very much want to see. That I would try harder to be successful in England than I am trying to be famous in Los Angeles.
Yeah. You give it. You put a bit of effort into it. You put a bit of effort into it. There's
well, mostly you do what you can. So many people I know in Hollywood think it's all here, and that my business is where people congregate to laugh. That happens more than Hollywood or more than America, and that the first things first, if we speak the same language, I have a leg up. So I think I would do well there.
Yeah, definitely. There's a chap. There's a chap on the telly called Jonathan Ross, who's a talk show guy, a bit like Letterman or James Corden now. You know, comedy chat show, and he just had a new series on, which was introducing comics. You know, from around the world and from the UK. You know, in established slots, but also a bit like the Comedy Store do or whatever, open mics, quick blasts. And his new program is the sort of thing you might want to try and get on, because you could say I'm coming to the UK and I want to, try out as a new comic or something because I'm 40 years in the business, but I'm a new comic to the UK, and you might be able to use that angle to get onto one of those shows. And that's where comedy. I think because live shows were stopped for a while, they put this show on quickly to get comics to have some avenue to do some work, because they were on the telly. So there's a lot of up and coming comic rather than the usual established comedians,
Well, it's on my to-do list. Frankly, I'm not afraid to fail. Give me 5, 7, 8, 10 attempts, and I will improve. Again, it's not talent, it's skill. And I listen, and that all I need to know is what they know, and I can find a joke.
Yeah.
I I would think it would be the adventure of a lifetime to come to the UK and do stand-up.
Yeah, I think. I think it would be great, after all this time.
I have personal reasons to come to the UK.
Yeah, I think after all this time, it would be brilliant as something new to get your heart rate going and get your testosterone going and just get that sort of fresh excitement and stuff back. I think it would be great. But I met a guy I did a world class speakers course recently, and he's a comedian. He's the chap who I was mentioned. He was doing a gig when Robbie Williams come in, and he started a Facebook group during the pandemic, and he's got about 4,000 people in there now. So I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but I thought I might as well tell you because I think it'd be worthwhile jumping into the group. It's called the Humour Lab. Have you heard of that, the Humour Lab?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, my personal hobby is learning to say thank you in as many languages as I can remember.
Okay.
I'm going to take a shot at this one, and I keep saying it wrong, but I beg you to remember, it's the effort that counts, the thought that counts. Diolch.
Yeah. Diolch.
Diolch.
Yeah,
there you go. The more I practice it, the better I'll get.
Yeah, I do a
I
bit
have
of
some other Welsh references that I won't use in the media right now, but nos da cariad.
Nos da carian. Good night, carian.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I can say thank you in probably 40 or 50 languages.
Yeah, okay.
Should you get a chance, look at my Facebook timeline.
Yeah.
I did a pilot right at the start of the pandemic for Poor Lou's Almanac. It's my news joke show.
Okay.
And that one of the segments was me setting a world's record for saying thank you in other languages, and I did 52 different languages inside of 2 minutes. But the habit started in Los Angeles because it's a melting pot city. So many people from so many different places coming here.
Yeah.
That I found it was the one word you could say to somebody else from a different country that would make them smile.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
yes,
that
good.
It grew, and I learned all kinds of languages. And what, after the years have gone by, I realized that I'm able to remember each country by the person that taught me.
Okay.
So even though I can't say Dalk well,
the
person that the word in my mind. Understand, it's a memory device.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that, oh, I don't know how to say this, but I'll tell you the truth. I know some German
Yeah.
because I grew up watching war films in the United States, and so many German phrases were used in the war films that I can come across with 8 or 10 of those. Now, time's getting short. I want to tell you a quick story. May I?
Yeah, go for it.
The greatest thing that's ever happened to me. My mother lost her father in World War II.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
was in the Pacific fighting the Japanese. He was a colonel in the United States Army. He was in the Philippines. He survived the Battle of Manila when the Philippines surrendered in the American troop event called the Bataan Death March, where they took 20,000 American troops and marched them 50 miles through the jungle. And if you fell down, they bayoneted you. If you ran away, they shot you. If you couldn't walk, they ran over you with a truck. So they only got about half of the prisoners from the beginning at the bottom of the south of the island, Luzon, to the top of the island where the prisoner of war camps were. My mother got 2 Red Cross from her father and then never heard another word. 5 years after the war, my mother was given a telegram from the Department of Defense saying that her father was listed killed in action, circumstances unknown. Well, in 1985, I'm leaving the Comedy Store and starting to do professional shows around California. And I was invited to perform on what they call is a USO show. And the Department of Defense and all of the places where the American troops were stationed, we did shows. On our third country, we got to the Philippines. There were so many American bases in the Philippines that we were there for a month doing 2 shows a day.
Yeah.
At the end of the month, we were invited to do a show at the presidential palace for then the president, Ferdinand Marcos, and his famous wife with the shoes, Isabella.
Imelda.
After the show,
Imelda Marcos.
in a diplomatic line, yes. And that after the show in a diplomatic line, I'm standing there with the rest of the members of the troops, and Ferdinand and Imelda walked up to me, and Ferdinand said, "I like your cat jokes," which kind of floored me. But then he said, "Can I do anything for you?" Now, knowing the situation and where I was, I immediately went into my pocket and pulled out a picture of my grandfather, colonel in the United States Army, and said, "Help me find my information." Well, he gave me to a general, who gave me to a colonel, who gave me to a lieutenant. They gave me 6 places to search. And on the 5th cemetery I went to, I found my grandfather's grave.
Oh, wow.
And he was honored with another 400 casualties from Texas,
Okay.
maybe 30 miles north of Manila. His name is at the top of the list for the whole Texas. I was able to take video, pictures, and get a certification and bring them back to the United States because we were still overseas for another month.
Yeah.
Then when I got back, I'm in California. It took me a while to get to Texas. I got to my grandmother, his wife, and I was able to show her what happened to her husband. After
Wow.
another 3 weeks, I made it to Georgia. I was able to get to my mother and show her what happened to her daddy.
Wow.
And
Wow.
all of this, Mike, all of this, other side of the world, telling jokes.
Yeah. That's
God bless me.
amazing. That's amazing.
It's in my book. It's called Grandpa's Promise. My book, Stand Up Decoded, is available through xlibris.com. I believe is on Amazon also. There's a hardcover out. Oh, here's a funny one. I had what we call vanity copies printed of my book because I published publishes an ebook and catch, because when I was starting comedy, I didn't have much money. At
Yeah.
any rate, a year or two later, I have copies printed for my family. And that just last year, I discovered that the company who I got the vanity copies printed by in Los Angeles is now selling my book overseas without my permission. They're selling it in Indonesia, China, Korea, Japan, and Germany.
So are you suing them?
Without my permissions, my book's good enough to be stolen. My book's good enough to be stolen.
Yes.
And I could care less about the money.
No, but you should sue them out of principle because they robbed you.
Yes, they did, and the joke is more important than the money. And they're charging 4 times what I charged for the ebook. So, Mike, send me on Messenger your email address, and I'll send you a free copy of my book.
Okay.
I didn't write it to make money. I don't care about money. I really don't. What I care about is helping, and I'm become less Lue Deck and more, I'm a low-key superhero. I am Endorphin Man. And all I want to do is show people how to make themselves happy.
Yeah.
Well, today, my friend, you've made me happy.
Yeah, I mentioned to you I got a happiness formula which I wrote during the lockdown, and I'll tell you it if you like, because you
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
So I call it the SMART happiness formula.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and the SMART is an acronym, and it stands for sleep, meditation, ability to perform, random acts of kindness, and target setting, target achievement, right? So the SMART, so the actual formula, this is a daily ritual, okay? But if you get 7 to 8 hours sleep, yeah, you do 30 minutes meditation or mindfulness a day, yeah? You look after your ability to perform, which covers exercise, 30 minutes, a well-balanced nutritional diet, and hydration. Yeah, so there's 3 different points to ability to perform. There's random acts of kindness, and there's target setting, target achievement. You do those 5 things on a daily basis, and you are guaranteed.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. Good for you. Believe it or not, I shot a video this weekend for Endorphin Man.
Yeah.
My particular thing is the homeless.
Yeah.
And that instead of just giving homeless people money, I give them a little money, but a bag full of things like a t-shirt, dry socks, toothpaste and a toothbrush, a protein bar, and things that even if they're living on the street, they can use and try to seize control of. The world's a nasty place. Sometimes you can't change the world, but you can change what happens between here and here.
Yeah.
So I have a positive visualization routine for Endorphin Men.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to show the homeless is, even if it's bad for the world and you can make yourself happy, and then the world gets a little better.
Yeah.
So I find we're on parallel paths, my friend. Good for you.
Definitely. Yeah, well, my podcast is a positivity podcast as well as an entrepreneurial one, and it's called You Can Do It, because I believe whatever it is, it can be done, and that's if you get the mind right. So, ultimately...
Good for you. I'm impressed.
Most people see failure as
when I come to England, you and I will have to visit a pub and talk a long time.
Yes, definitely. But most people see failure as failure when really they're just lessons. And if you just keep listening to life's lessons and learn from them, then you'll become much more successful and much stronger minded and be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve, because most people don't take the lessons and develop on from those lessons, and they just keep having the same lessons and getting nowhere. But if you're actually willing to listen to the lesson, learn from it, and use it in your future, then you'll gravitate much further away from where you started in the direction of where you want to head to.
Wonderful. I am so impressed.
Yeah.
Maybe Hollywood needs to hear about SMART.
Yeah, well, I think the world needs to hear about SMART, which is why I created the formula, and it's why I'm going to try and speak on a global basis about SMART. But SMART is not just the only thing. I come up with the SMART formula, which is for happiness, and then I also come up with the streams formula, which is for success, because a big part of my happiness is success as well. So I'm an achiever. I like achieving. And in order to be successful in life, I analysed, I go to my happiness formula, which is a daily routine. And then I realised a big part of happiness for me is success. And then the logical next steps of thinking about the seven, or the major things which I consider are important for success. And that got me to come up with seven, what I call the seven pillars of success. And they are systems, technology, relationships, efficiency, action, marketing, and sales, which is streams. And whereas the SMART formula is a daily routine to become happy, the streams formula is 7 areas of your life that you have to invest in order to become successful.
Brilliant. Bravo. Bravo. I hope you have the greatest of success with that. That when you bring something good to the world, you improve your karma. Follow me for karma?
I'm a massive karma fan. I'm all about the karma. At the end of the day, I don't, like you, I don't value money. Money is only a display of value. And what I'm into value exchanges. So I can get value in lots of different ways. And one of the biggest ways I can get value is karma. And that's why random acts of kindness is the R in my SMART formula, because if you give random acts of kindness to people, then you create so much karma, you create so much positive energy and positive flow that you get paid infinitely, you get paid an infinite amount of value, if you like, because you get value, they get value, people who observe it get value, the world gets positive energy, and the world gets value. You create so much value that it's much better than pictures of the Queen, or in your case, ex-presidents.
I'm in complete agreement with you. I'm stunned in the maximum to hear about your program. It parallels mine very closely. I'm proud of you. Good, well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheerio, my friend.
I'm interested in exploring a little bit more your programs then as well, because it sounds like we're on very similar paths. So yeah, fantastic. And I think it's a great thing to do, is to be selfless and to give. The reason I want to become a global speaker, and I'm on a mission to become one of the most known people on the planet, is my mission. And that's not because I'm chasing fame like a lot of fame-hungry people are. It's because I want to get to a stage where I can help more people. So if I can become very well known, and people believe in what I'm doing, which is trying to help as many people as possible, trying to give them as much as I can give them, then hopefully I can help as many people on the planet as possible. That's my mission.
A worthy goal, my friend, a worthy goal. You should be proud.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, so it's one I actually discovered my worthy goal during the pandemic. So like you said, when we spoke for about a minute before we went on to recording, you've had a fantastic pandemic. So have I, because I found my why. I was always close to my why, but I really pinpointed my why. And that's why I started my podcast, because I decided I wanted to reach the top heights in the world doing what I do, which is helping people, educating people, making them happier, making them more successful, doing whatever I can do to improve people and lift people up. And I thought, well, the pandemic is a great time to unleash that on the world, because there's going to be a lot of people who need lifting up.
I agree. So much of the world is treading water and staying in the same place. those of us that can and want to have a chance to catch up to the problems and apply unused solutions.
Yeah. Well,
And that
I'm a
so
solutions
impressed with
provider.
what you told me.
Yeah, I'm a solutions provider, and I'm also a collaborator. And to me, technology is the solution at the moment that is allowing the global collaborators to form bonds and relationships so that we can actually get this pandemic kicked to the curb, which is going to happen soon anyway. And then we can get global, the global warming and global crisis fixed, because having people like the outgoing President Trump, who wants to build walls, is not good in a world where we need to build bridges, and we need to work together to solve the world's problems. Otherwise, we might find that we destroy the planet or each other or whatever, right? You know.
Well, I agree with you completely. I add to the list nuclear proliferation.
Yeah.
I'm a particular angry citizen about giving nuclear weapons to people who aren't responsible enough not to use them.
Yeah.
So if there are enough people like you, we will make the world better. And if there aren't, we'll make it better anyhow.
Or we'll die trying.
I'm losing battery power on my tablet, so
Okay.
I'm going to have to close. But two things I want to tell you before I go. Number one, oh, you've done your job today. You've made me happy.
Oh,
and I
good.
owe you, and I thank you.
Oh, brilliant.
Second,
Thank you.
I hope that special other person I know in Cardiff gets to see this, and that she realizes how close alike of mind fellows you and I are, and accompany us, both of us, to the pub to discuss this.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I look
I
forward
wish
to
everybody who's watching your
I look
I
forward
wish
to the day
everybody
you come
who's
to
watching your
Wales.
podcast.
I look forward to
Diolch.
the day. Yeah, diolch.
Yeah. Again, practice, practice, practice. I'll get it right one of these days.
Yeah,
But the thought is there. My
brilliant.
thanks from my heart for your opportunity today. Bless you. Be safe. Watch yourself during the pandemic. Half of this is personal responsibility and avoiding bad situations.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you what, I wish you success, but more than that, I wish you have a chance to expand your golden heart, because people will love you for it. And that's the basis by which the world goes.
brilliant. Brilliant. Well,
Lue Deck, I'm the comic in red shoes. And it's been an honor to appear with you today. Thank you, Mike Armstrong.
brilliant. Thank you, Lou. And it's been a pleasure. And thank you very much for coming on my podcast. And there's nothing else really left for me to say other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening.
My pleasure, I assure you. Farewell, my friend.
Farewell. Farewell.